So here we are again, the Buddhist Path of Awakening course. And we are working our way through the profound treasury of the ocean of Dharma. This 3-volume set is a compilation of talks given by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche over 15 years. Every year he would take a group of his students away for a period of about 3 months, usually somewhere between 150 and 250 students, for a 3-month retreat in the fall, because resort areas like out here in Colorado were empty in the fall, and their facilities were inexpensive. And so we would rent them for 3 months, and during those 3 months, the time would be divided according to the 3 stages of the Buddhist path, the Tibetan Buddhist path. The 3 yanas, they're called. Yana means vehicle. The Hinayana, which literally means lesser vehicle. He preferred to translate it as foundational vehicle. The Mahayana, which is the greater vehicle, and that's what we're on right now. We're on the 2nd volume covering the Mahayana talks. And the Vajrayana, or the adamantine vehicle, which is all about Tantra in the Vajrayana. We are working our way through the Mahayana, specifically the Bodhisattva path, and we are going through chapters dealing with the transcendent virtues of the Bodhisattva. The transcendent means that they're not involved with I and other, but they transcend the mistake of believing in I and other. So today we are on chapter 31, and it's on meditation, and Barry is going to lead off. Mr. Cunningham.
Okay, let's start with a bow, if you will join me. And let me make one other adjustment here. Okay. So this is the Paramita of meditation. And it starts with him saying, the Paramita of meditation, or Dhyana Paramita, is described as a good rider. You ride on the horse of exertion with complete mindfulness and skill. You develop constant steadiness, which is like maintaining a good seat as you ride a horse. I think this is a great analogy. A good rider is at home in the saddle, right? And what comes to mind for me is watching a good horseman or woman at work with cattle on horseback. Their posture is erect, alert, balanced, and relaxed all at the same time. You know, they're unperturbed by the motion of the horse or the changing conditions, without any sense of struggle to maintain their seat in a dynamic situation. And I think that's a great analogy for the Paramita of meditation. With patience, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, it's also about a kind of stability, but it's a little more internal. Here there's a sense of being engaged. So he says that the Tibetan word for dhyana is samtin, which means stabilizing thought process, stabilized thought process. I'm going to stick with dhyana throughout this just because it's less confusing, or at least to me it is. In addition, dhyana is the Sanskrit term, and Sanskrit is what you use to refer to most things throughout this reading, like the Pashana and Shamatha and everything. So, in any case, in the Paramita of meditation, stability is key. One is stable, can't be thrown off course, but also not rigid. He says, dhyana or samten is like king of the mountain. You are never moved or challenged. You always stay very still. Internally still, that is. Not succumbing to emotional weather. And somebody's mic is on, which might be distracting. I'm hearing sounds out there. So if you could check. And he goes on that it is a further elaboration on the notion of patience, but it is much more insightful than patience. That patience is mostly about just staying put. As he said in a previous chapter, you can meditate in the middle of Grand Central Station. There is a sense there of simply abiding, refraining, letting things be as they are. With dhyana, stability is on a different level. There is a sense of stability in dynamic situations. It's akin to a great sense of balance. And with that, you might begin to dance. By learning how to extend your attention, he says, further and further, and to stay on one spot for a long time, you can cultivate the Dharma and the notion of enlightenment. And so that's what we're developing here as we move with our practice from the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and Shamatha, Pashana through the Paramitas, is being able to stay on the spot for longer and longer periods of time. As we become more and more familiar, this becomes more natural to us. He says the nature of dhyana is to cut distractions, and its function is develop groundedness. When I first read this, I read groundlessness, of course, but no, groundedness. After all, groundlessness has been so central to everything. Groundlessness, shunyata, emptiness. But here, we're talking about groundedness, meaning a sense of stability that the sense here is groundedness not as in clinging to what we cut through a shunyata, but a sense of stability. And the ground in this case is our seat. It's our seat of meditation. It is the saddle of the rider, you might say. Dhyana consists of watching your thoughts and whatever goes on in your mind as flowing river or a mountain range, he says. And this is what you've heard in the instructions for Pashana meditation. Sitting on the train and watching the scenery go by. Just a second here. One of the keys to attain enlightenment, this is one of the keys to attain enlightenment, because it allows us to cut through preoccupation and desires. We see how we attempt to fill up our space, how we divert ourselves, how we preoccupy ourselves. And by cutting distractions, we can then begin to see clearly. We may still feel the presence of preoccupations and desires tugging at our attention, but we're simply aware of them, not carried away. Meditation the meditation paramita is a step beyond the paramitas of generosity, discipline, patience, and exertion. At this point, there is a quality of immense solidity, which derives from the previous four paramitas and an awareness of everything that is taking place. That patience is related to shamatha and is focused on achieving an internal stability. Here, there's an element of Pashana, actually. An internal steadiness, but with an expanding awareness. Now, in the schema of the paramitas alternating between shamatha and vipassana, meditation has the quality of shamatha primarily, and the meaning and experience of shamatha continues to change. He says on the level of dhyana paramita, shamatha is not so much taming. We're pretty much tamed everything at this point. It is rather getting used to being tamed. So, at risk of overextending this analogy, it's going beyond being a good rider and becoming at home in the saddle, being at home in our seat of meditation. The shamatha experience is more a matter of synchronizing body, speech, and mind. And if you are unable to control your mind, speech, and body, you will constantly be led into heedlessness in spite of all the other paramitas you may have attained. So, synchronizing body, speech, and mind, this is something that has come up many times in the past, mainly in the context of synchronizing mind and body in meditation, especially through the breath. But here, this is more a sense of an awareness of all aspects of our being. The mind is in sync with the body in the present moment, and our speech is an expression of the intelligence state of mind. That we're never on autopilot. We're always here with everything that's going on within ourselves and elsewhere. He says that without this, you'll be subject to passion, which is based on fickleness, wandering mind, and the inability to pay heed to what happens in your life. And the passion he speaks of here, by the way, is not the same passion as the one of the three poisons of passion, aggression, and ignorance, but it's a broader context. It's referring to neurosis in general, wanting things to be different, reverting to the view of I and other. Okay, it goes on. Dhyana Paramita includes post-meditation experience as well as meditation experience, a sense of composure in which body, speech, and mind are well coordinated. Frankly, I found this a little confusing because I had the sense that all of the paramitas are about post-meditation or meditation in daily life. But in any case, you were able to cut through your passions, longing, desires, or looking for further feedback, he says, because your body, speech, and mind are fully occupied at their best, you experience complete satisfaction. Complete satisfaction because you're engaged with the present moment, right? You can accomplish all kinds of things in your imagination, but it's not ultimately satisfying. So this is the definition of shamatha practice on the meditation paramita level. So this is a little nugget here, this definition, that the definition of shamatha practice in the meditation paramita level is the synchronization of body, speech, and mind. So the practice of Dhyana Paramita allows you to concentrate on the virtues of non-aggression, which, by the way, comes from shanti, patience, and contentment, which we develop here. So what we're saying here is you've changed your allegiance. You know that the answers aren't out there. You're no longer seeking satisfaction and from validation from others, or returning to dreams, or acquiring some goodie. You are at home in the Dharma. Because of that, he says, you are able to attain the ultimate seclusion, the ultimate hermitage. This is interesting, the ultimate hermitage. He says you might find that inner hermitage very lonely. In this case, you are carrying your loneliness with you all the time. You might find it somewhat hauntingly lonely. This loneliness that we speak of comes from the awareness of aloneness. And that really comes from accepting the second noble truth, that the source of suffering isn't out there. Realizing that, we have to take responsibility for our own enlightenment. But never fear. The third noble truth says that the cessation of suffering is therefore possible. He goes on, even though you might feel somewhat lonely, you can still feel extremely relieved and joyful. And great relief, joyfulness, is a hallmark of the realization of egolessness. That I and other are fictions, and there is also in that the beginning of our aloneness. It goes on, you no longer have a need for unnecessary toys and babysitters, playmates. You are completely coordinated and you are in one piece. Your mind is one and your concentration and actions are at their best. That is the real idea of dhyana. Now, from the Bodhisattva point of view, he says, if you do not have good concentration, you will not achieve intuitive appreciation or intuitive insight. And if you don't have intuitive insight, you will not be able to work with other sentient beings. So good concentration, this is staying present, undistracted, leaving the hitchhiker behind. That voice that's always commenting. Intuitive insight, I've seen this referred to as seeing the Dharma. It's seeing things as they are, intuitively. It is knowing rather than thinking. And this opens the way for becoming genuinely open, genuinely curious about the person before you. He says the idea of intuitive insight is that you have a way of seeing and experiencing how other people's minds actually work. Because you can see clearly. In this, I'm at the end of this little section. John's going to start in a moment. But in this little section, there were several wonderful, pithy nuggets. And this is one of them: intuitive insight, that developing good concentration, remaining present, you might say being tall in the saddle, that we can leave the hitchhiker behind, become fully present, and become a decent person. Then intuitive insight becomes possible with your intelligence and curiosity. And that makes bodhisattva activity possible. Okay, John?
Okay. Let's see, how do I switch this?
Oh, I'll do it.
Thanks. Thank you, Barry.
Oh, John, just
Yes?
before, I'm sorry. I was going to show, I skipped over the part about Lohans, and I was going to show some pictures of Lohans if you'd like to do that.
I can do that.
I have it all set up very
So
nicely.
if you have it all set up, what Barry's going to show you, Trungpa Rinpoche mentioned the Lohan statues. And the Lohan statues were, and we're about to show them, there's one. This is one of the original Lohans. They were created in China, and scholars differ as to when. The usual, or the date that I learned in many years ago in school, was that their Tang dynasty, which would place them in the 700s, 8th century in China. And they're unusual. First of all, they're about 3 feet high. As you can see, they're really gorgeous. These are disciples of the Buddha. And they're unusual because they're not icons. They are portraits of people. Each face is different. It conveys a different feeling. Trungpa Rinpoche mentioned them because they are people who are on the path, and you can see in their face that they are not fully realized, that there is tension or some sort of anxiety still driving them. There are 2 at the Metropolitan for those of you who live in New York. You can go see them. They're quite gorgeous. And the rest of them are scattered around the world. They've just been, over the centuries, they've moved. And also what happened is, you see, after these Lohans appeared in China, people so loved them that they created what are called Lohan halls in Buddhist countries. And there would be sometimes there's one, and you can see there are many more than the original 12. And these are statues of the disciples of the Buddha. And there are Lohan halls all over the world, in Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Korea, Cambodia, Mongolia. It just became a tradition. And they are unusual because each is a portrait of a unique individual who is on the path, as opposed to an icon of a Buddha who looks very serene and enlightened. These people look like us, more or less. They've got human qualities. So you can Google them, and the original Chinese are, for my money, the most beautiful. Actually, when I turn off my video, which I'm about to do, these are a couple. Thai. Let's see. Can I do this? Speaker gallery. No. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Here are a couple from Thailand. And again, you can see each one of them is different. A friend of mine brought these back many years ago and as a present. And they live in my house. So these are the Lohans. and they're like us on the path. This chapter on meditation is so important. It's really, I mean, we're spending a lot of time, all of us, meditating. It's really about that we are beginning to see the difference between the mind of meditation and the mind of thought, of neurosis, of ego. The mind of meditation is like the sky. It's always here, right now. It's in what they call the Ayatanas. The Ayatanas, that's a phrase that's used in this chapter. The Ayatanas, that's a Sanskrit word, and what it refers to is the senses. There are 12 Ayatanas, and what they are the eye and the object of vision, the ear and the object of hearing, sounds, the nose and the object of smell, of smells, the tongue and tastes, the body and physical sensations. I apologize for the delay if you're seeing a delay, just my internet. And then finally, the mind and objects of mind. This is what we talk about every day in meditation. These are the Ayatanas. They're the 12, the organ and its object. And our awareness of the Ayatanas is always here, but it's obscured, it's clouded when we get lost in thought, in dream. So the dreams are like clouds that go across the sky of this awareness that never changes, it changes, but it doesn't stop. This awareness of the Ayatanas, of the senses and their objects. And then we have the thoughts that we get lost in, the dreams. Meditation is about seeing that difference and beginning to switch our loyalty from the dreams, the stories that we tell ourselves, which are so limited, so narrow, so small, to this open awareness in the present moment, which is completely accurate. It's accurate because it's here, it's this. It's not involved in a story, a fiction that we tell ourselves. So meditation is first and foremost a beginning to get familiar with these two modalities and seeing them. And we switch our allegiance, our loyalty, from the world of thought to the world, you might say, of the Ayatanas, of awareness. And we do that every time we meditate, every time we say, oh yes, I'm thinking, and we come back to the breath. The breath, our awareness of the breath is right here and now, or to the awareness of space with everything that's arising in it. That's right here and now, awake, aware. And we continually notice that we're thinking. And as soon as you notice you're thinking, you're back in awareness, this open space. And we're shifting our loyalty to this because this open space is what is actually real. The dreams are very, very idiosyncratic to each one of us. They change a little bit from time to time. We have particular patterns of neurosis that we've acquired in our dreams over the years and decades. They're fictions. They are the fictions of I and other. They're just like TV dramas that we keep playing out repetitively again and again. And they're always dramatic. They're always dramatic. They're fraught with anxiety, unhappiness. This is samsara. This is the very basis of samsara. Now, it's not easy to switch our loyalty because we're so loyal to the dreams. And it's also not easy to switch our loyalty in meditation to this space here in the present moment. Because those dreams, their main function is to prove that I'm here. Me with this problem, me with this hope, me with this project, me with this fear. That's what the dreams are all about. And in coming back into the present, we are giving that up. And that can be scary. But that scariness is another dream. Because when we truly come back and rest in this awareness in the present moment, it's devoid of fear. Fear only lives in those dreams. Someone once asked Trungpa Rinpoche, I've always been so impressed with his answer. They said, what is the purpose of fear? And he said, the purpose of fear is to prove that I exist. Me, the one who's afraid. So when we truly come back into the present, fear evaporates, as well as the whole story of I and other, whatever that particular story is. And this is what meditation is about. We are waking up slowly to our lives. Now, if we don't, we'll dream ourselves all the way through our lives and into our deaths. And our deaths will become another dream, or a continuation of the dream. These dreams change as our circumstances change. Circumstances of our lives. You start out as a child, you've got different dreams, you turn into an adult, you start to find a partner, you start to get a job, you start to worry about livelihood, all kinds of things. Start to worry about whether you're liked, whether you're famous, whether you're successful. And these are the dreams that are continually changing as we move through the stages of our lives. Meditation in this path is about realizing that they are fictions that we have become enmeshed in. This is what it means to be a samsaric being. When they talk about sentient beings, that's what they're talking about. People who are lost in dreams. Sentient beings are confused. Confused why? How? Because they're lost in these stories instead of being awake in the present moment. This is the very heart of what meditation means, is to begin to see the alternatives. And the alternatives are twofold. There is this awareness of space and everything that's arising in it now. And on the other hand, there are dreams. And when you go into dreams, you disappear. You go off into a cloud of thought. In a particularly strong dream, someone might come up and call your name, and you might not even hear them. We've all experienced that. Especially a strong dream full of anxiety that really grips us. So, and just to make it completely clear, we are dealing with two different languages here, and they're sort of mixed, and I think it's the problem with the editing. Samten is the word for meditation in Tibetan, usually translated as meditation. And dhyana is the word in Sanskrit. And the problem is that this chapter is mixing in the two languages here and there. They talk about Samten, which is Tibetan, and then they'll talk about Paramita, which is Sanskrit, and we go back and forth. So Barry correctly said that we're going to focus, just for simplicity's sake, on the Sanskrit, which actually Trungpa Rinpoche actually preferred. It's sort of pure, and the word is dhyana for meditation. It's a general word. Okay, so we have these two categories of dhyana. In the header in the chapter is two categories of samten, and then he goes in and he talks about dhyana and vipassana and shamatha, which are all Sanskrit terms. These two categories of samten are shamatha and vipassana. And what shamatha is really about is coming present. And at this level of the path, which is an advanced level, it's about resting in emptiness. Emptiness is this open awareness without subject and object. Without subject and object, remember, those two things live in the stories, only there. We have to be telling ourselves a story to have subject and object. Otherwise, there's just this, without any name to it, necessarily. But when we get lost in the subject and object, then we've gotten lost in samsara and in confusion. So shamatha here is beyond the notion of shamatha. In the Hinayana, shamatha is just achieving a kind of peace by coming back into the present moment. It literally means, the word means abiding in peace. That's what shamatha means. But at the Mahayana level, it means beyond just peace, beyond just kind of a static peace. And instead, what it's about is shunyata. Shunyata is the absence of these I-other stories that are so fraught with struggle. So this is what shamatha means at this Mahayana transcendent level. We're beginning to transcend the confusion of samsara. And vipassana at the Hinayana level, the beginning level, means that we begin to become aware of what's going on in this present moment. At the Mahayana level, it means that in awareness of all of this stuff that is arising and passing every instant, we become inspired by the beauty of it and begin to feel love for it. It's the love that you can feel in seeing a sunset. It's the love that you can feel in seeing the joy in someone's eyes or the sorrow in someone's eyes. It's all kinds of things because you are present and you are attuned and you are feeling what's going on in this present moment. And so Vipassana goes beyond just awareness of sounds and sights and all that and becomes compassion at the Mahayana level. And we combine these two. Every time you come present, you are coming into the real world, stripped of these I-other stories, these dramas, these TV scripts, these movie scripts. And you're coming into this open dimension, which is groundless, really, because there's no I or other. It can be a little scary at first. And that's that slogan that Rinpoche said, the bad news is you're falling through centerless space. That's shunyata. The good news is there is no ground. You're not going to land anywhere because there's no you and there's no ground. There's just this continual arising and passing of the Iotanas, which don't last for even an instant. Everything is changing, second by second, and this is the space of shunyata. This is the space of reality. So then he talks about the three levels of samten, I keep saying samten because it's written here. The three levels of samten are dhyana, meditation. And the first level is you're maintaining yourself within the Ayatinus. And the Ayatinus, remember, are the sense organs and their objects. And that includes not only the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, the 5 literal sense organs, but it includes the mind, the 6th one. That's an organ that sees its objects are mental events. So there are these 6, or if you want to call it this way, 12 Ayatanas. And he says the first level of dhyana, of meditation, is that you're maintaining yourself within the Ayatanas. This is so important. We're coming present to this stuff that's arising here in the space of this present moment. This is what we do every day in meditation. Your mind becomes peaceful, your body relaxed. And this is the essence at this advanced level of shamatha practice. Because we're aware of all of this stuff arising and passing in this present moment. And with this comes shinjang. Shinjang means that you're sort of cleaned up, you're purified, you're thoroughly processed, he says. You're shinjanged. We turned it, it's a Tibetan word, and we turned it into like an English word by putting an ED on the end. So you become shinjand, means you're coming out of these dreams of thoughts and into the present. It's getting cleaned up. Your mind is processed by the peace and one-pointedness of mindfulness practice. The one-pointedness means really you're one-pointed here, now. And the body is processed by assuming certain postures. So we take this good posture of the Buddha. And in doing that, we come alert. He says, eventually, the posture of sitting meditation practice becomes a soothing and natural exercise. It is natural relaxation. That because we're giving up all those anxieties of thought again and again. It's a slow process. It's a gradual process. In the beginning, when you do it, and maybe in the beginning can go on 50 years, speaking for myself, that in the beginning, you are, every time you see that you're thinking and you come back, then you're off again in thought. We've got such a habit. Now, from the Buddhist point of view, we've only been doing this for an instant. From our point of view, it may have been decades, but decades is just another idea in itself, another instant. So we come back again and again, and every time we come back, time is out the window. Time only lives in the dreams. We say, oh, I've been doing this for so long, I'll never get anywhere. Oh, it's been decades. Oh, I'm not going to accomplish this before I die. We're consumed with time. That's another dream. Every time we come back into this present moment, into awareness of the Ayatanas and their objects, time disappears. It's just an idea, a concept. He says this natural relaxation that we achieve in the awareness of the present moment is produced by prajna. Prajna is the ability, among other things, to see that this present moment is the real world, that we are switching our allegiance to reality. He says it's the Buddhist version of dry cleaning. How about that? We're cleaning up our minds, dry cleaning them. There's no passion, as Barry defined it, meaning neurosis. Just prajna. Prajna is this clear seeingness. So this is achieved through the first level of meditation, which is shamatha practice. The second level is accumulating goodness, it's called. And having fully developed this ability to come back into the present, or at least beginning to develop it genuinely, you begin to develop Vipassana. It's intelligence, and it contains within it compassion. It's the possibility of seeing the world properly and fully. It's clear perception, not involved with ego, which blocks or clouds your perception. The ego is all about these I and other stories, these dramas. You could sit down and write one, and they completely take us away. We go off into this cloud of storiness. When you no longer have ego, cloudiness, you begin to experience clarity and are able to practice immaculately. Immaculate practice is switching your allegiance to this. And then you can help others beautifully, because you're helping them step out of their neurotic dreams and into appreciation of this life as it arises now. And then he says, and because of that, you can attain enlightenment and help others attain enlightenment too. Complete awakening. And then finally, there's the third level, enthusiasm of working for others. Having developed Shunyata, freedom from dream, and Vipassana, compassion, Shamatha, Vipassana, Shunyata, compassion, we become inspired to help others, and not inspired in some goody two-shoes way. It's just simply that it's the only thing to do. It's not a big deal. It's who we are, and we have lots of energy to do it at this level of the path. He says, the discipline of working for sentient beings begins to evolve, but you can't keep up with it because there are so many. But you do what you can. You just keep working every day. I'm reminded of a story I heard about in Australia. The waters had become polluted in the ocean, and some people were walking on the beach and looking at all the starfish that were washed up on the shore and dying. And this person picked up a couple of starfish and threw them back in the ocean. And their companion said, there are millions of them. You can't save them. And he said, I can save that one or that two. That's the attitude of the Bodhisattva. You do what you can because there's nothing else to do. It's the way to be here in this world. And it's full of joy and heart and compassion, and it's natural. It's not a big deal. It's not a matter of being virtuous according to some standard of virtue. He says, you can't be moved by wandering thoughts. At this level, working for sentient beings, confused beings lost in the dream, becomes the activity of emptiness and compassion, of shamatha and vipassana. And you become very, very solid in the sense of that you can be awake and aware in a relaxed, easy fashion for longer and longer periods of time without being carried away by your own thoughts. There's this slow progression, this slow shift of the loyalty from thought, from dream to awareness. In the beginning, the awareness just comes in flashes, in moments. You say, oh yes, there it is, and then you're lost in a dream again. But as time goes on, the dreams become more attenuated, more transparent. And finally, you become just like a mountain, since your span of attention cannot be interrupted. You can listen to someone and work with them for many years. You do not look for shortcuts. There's nothing else to do. I was talking today, I remember years ago, Trungpa Rinpoche, here's a story. He woke me up in the middle of the night, wanted to talk. And he said, you know how people have flashes of enlightenment, call it flashes of awareness? I said, sure. And he said, I have flashes of samsara. How about that one? He was just living in this awareness all the time. And then occasionally he would have flashes of samsara. And he said, I like them. They're entertaining. What do you say to something like that? A few years later, we were sitting in an office here in Boulder in 1111 Pearl Street, Carmen Song. And out of the blue, we were talking about one thing, and in the middle, he interrupted me, and he said, do you remember how I told you that I was having flashes of samsara? And I said, yes. And he said, they've stopped. I miss them. There's a picture of the path. It is our path. This is what we're on, inevitably. And the Buddhas say again and again, the enlightened beings, they say that when you're on this path, You feel like it's never going to end, that it's been going on for so long. But from their perspective, it was just a finger snap, if even that. So he says you're like a mountain as you begin to move into this open awareness, shift your loyalty. And your real commitment to the other person is an act of compassion because you are also practicing exertion, meaning you enjoy what you're doing. There's no, in this kind of thing, there isn't any sense of virtue like I'm being a good person. That's crap. It's just inspiration to do what is normal, is human. All for all of us, for each one of us. And we all do it, more and less from time to time, according to how much we are awake and living in this world. I mean, when a person practices that kind of goody two-shoes type of virtue, like they're being good, it's awful. It's self-serving. And we know it. So finally, he closes this chapter with the 8 obstacles to samten, to dhyana, to meditation. And he says, when the body is not controlled, you have physical chaos. We move without thinking. I do it, you do it. I always felt with Trungpa Rinpoche when I watched him, you can see it in the videos, that he was so deliberate, the way he picked up a glass and took a sip and then put it down. When the speech is not controlled, you have chaos in your discursive, habitual thought patterns. Speech, you see, doesn't mean just literally talking. Speech is the whole world of concept, of communication, thought, all of it. And when your mind is not controlled, you have problems of mindlessness, random thoughts, casualness. We're all over the place. One minute we're thinking one thing and acting on it, and another minute we're thinking something entirely different. The fourth is when there is too much indulgence in your kleshas, your emotions. You make a deal of them. You have problems with emotional upheavals. And when you engage in mindless talking, this is the fifth, chatter and gossip, it is a problem not just for yourself, but also for your neighbors. They have to endure it. And they get carried away in it too, perhaps. Because it allows them and you to recreate memories. It gives you a chance to reconnect with your own subconscious gossip. So you get lost in the stories again, because that's what the subconscious gossip is. Subconscious, conscious. The sixth is when you let go and relax too much or in the wrong way, you allow yourself to be attacked by evil forces. When we talk about the duns and the offering chant that we just did, those are evil forces, duns. They attack you. And when you let go and relax too much, what he's talking about is when you get lost in your dreams. Then the duns, those evil forces can attack you. Forces of doubt, fear, anxiety, hatred, whatever they may be. And these are the obstacles of Mara. Mara is the tempter. He sends his messengers, and there are the 4 main Maras that we've already talked about. The Mara of the seduction of the sense pleasures, that's called the sons of the gods. The Mara of the fear of death. The Mara of belief in an I, that's the Skanda Mara. And what's the 4th? Death. We've got the seduction by sensual pleasures, death, belief in an I. Oh, and kleshas, the seduction into the emotions of hatred, jealousy, and all the rest. So finally, then the last two, he doesn't really go into much. One is heedlessness. When you're lost in thought, you're heedless. You just lurch around, driven by the thoughts that drive us. And you regress. That's this last one, the eighth. You regress in your practice of shamatha and vipassana, meaning you just get lost in mindlessness. But when you're able to overcome these obstacles, you begin to relax into reality. You become shinjaned. That means cleaned up, right? And you become industrious about helping others. And he says, I like this. You begin quite happily to snuggle yourself, so to speak, into meditation, into samten, because meditation is a great relief from the anxiety of samsara. Finally, you've given birth to ultimate and relative bodhicitta, and you are able to generate compassion properly and fully. Ultimate and relative bodhicitta means ultimate bodhicitta is just this awakened mind. That's what bodhicitta means. Bodhi is awake, citta is mind. And ultimate is coming back to this space of awareness. Relative means that having come back, we can relate to all the things that arise, the Iotanas, sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, body, and mind. And then finally, he talks about implementing meditation. And there are four types of practices, which I'm not really going to go into too much because he doesn't. And we've already talked about them. They're the four limitless ones. There's Maitri. And actually, I'm going to say something about this. Maitri is, being kind to yourself. The ultimate kindness is that you see your thoughts and with kindness, and you let them just melt away, as opposed to seeing that you're thinking, you're sitting here, you're trying to watch your breath, whatever you're doing, and you say, oh gosh, I'm thinking again. Terrible me, terrible meditator. That is another big thought. Let it go. You begin to develop a kindness to yourself that you can see, yes, I'm thinking. And in seeing that we're thinking, we're already back in awareness for however long. It might just be an instant. That's fine. Because what we're beginning to do is to see the difference between awareness and dream. And in seeing that, you are already beginning to switch your loyalty. All you have to do is see it. So we begin to develop mindfulness, a sense of gentleness and lovingness to yourself, he says. To yourself, that's so important. Otherwise, if we're hard on ourselves, that's just another egotism, another form of ego. And then we develop karuna, compassion toward others and yourself. And this produces a sense of delight. Again, so important that we should begin to experience some genuine delight on the path, the delight of realizing, yes, I'm beginning to understand this. Yes, I'm beginning to change. It's beginning to happen. And that produces a sense of confidence and delight that we actually have awakened mind. Finally, there's the last two are mudita, that's joy. You're delighted because what you're doing is perfectly legitimate and excellent. You don't have second thoughts at all. In fact, second thoughts just become the arising of ego and dream again. And we see them and we're already back. And then finally, there's equanimity. You are beginning to lose the notion of taking sides. a sense of equality about everything. You just see the thoughts, you're back. It doesn't matter. There's no sense of accomplishment, of good and bad, of going from one place to another mentally or any other way. And then finally, he says, altogether, the four limitless ones, Maitri, Karuna, joy, equanimity, are about how to practically cultivate the ideal meditative state based on egolessness, Shamatha call it, egolessness, and compassion. This is the ideal meditative state. This is not meditation as quiescence, shutting down, but as clear seeing, open-hearted compassion, and appropriate effective action. This is like this is a summary of the path. He didn't say this. This is what we have learned. This is meditation as not as quiescence. When we first come to meditation, we think meditation is about getting quiet, calm. But it's clear seeing, that's the prajna, open-hearted compassion, and appropriate effective action with joy, with pleasure. Okay. And we have gone on through the Paramita, the transcendent virtue of meditation. So we can have a discussion.
John, this is Tully. This session rang a pretty loud bell for me in reminding me of the importance of being centered in this practice if you really want to have appropriate action. And the reason it rang a loud bell is because I'm a business coach, but this week had a young man in Asia really start to open up about the conflict between his traditional Catholic family and his having a different sexual identity from what that traditional Catholic family says is right, and leading to drinking a lot of alcohol. So, I mean, my coaching normally is around how to be a better leader, but to really want to have appropriate action, as you called it, boy, you better be centered in this. So again, it rang loud bells for me. So thanks to both of you for reviewing this chapter with us.
Thank you for sharing that. As brief as it was moving. I'm sure it was moving for you.
Oh God, yes. Very much so. And it, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say beyond, yeah. I mean, today's session, just another reminder of, man, you better be centered in this and in this practice to really be of help to people. So anyway, again, thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Judy.
Yeah, I'm amazed every week at how much more this hits home when it's spoken than when I just read it. I really have to thank both of you. It's just a wonderful thing how it just enters when it's spoken rather than just read. It really gives a different depth and a penetration that's remarkable. Thank you. It is a spoken tradition, right? You're supposed to get it from the teachers, and you really see that
Yeah.
and feel it. Just great.
Cool.
For hundreds of years, it was passed down orally mostly.
Yeah, well, you see it. I mean, it just is so much clearer and more penetrating somehow. I'm sure everybody notices that, but it is remarkable.
I think Lodro had something.
Here in the chapter, the Tibetan term that is used for meditation is samtem. I'm used to knowing it as gom for familiarity or tuning in. I was wondering if you guys know if there's a difference between samtem and gom in the way that they are used.
Yes. There are many words for meditation, and they just all, samten is a broad, very broad general term. And then there are other words for meditation that are more particular and focused. Gom is one of them. They translate into English as meditation or familiarity in the case of Gom. It's a little confusing. And you need to get familiar with the use of the Sanskrit or the Tibetan in context. So the context here in this chapter is very broad. This word dhyana or samten, Sanskrit Tibetan, is a very broad concept of what meditation is. And it's divided into these two parts, shamatha, which in Tibetan is shine, and vipassana, which in Tibetan is laktong. So we're dealing with the problems of translation. And this is a problem that Buddhism has encountered over the centuries as it's moved from one country to the next and constantly had to be translated. So we're dealing with it, with the problem of translating it into English.
Thank you. Lastly, I was wondering also what the connections, if any, are between the Paramita of meditation and also the 8th step on the Noble Eightfold Path, right concentration or right meditation. Is there a connection between the two?
The Noble Eightfold Path is usually taught at the Hinayana level. And so it's a more beginning level of meditation. And now we're at the Mahayana level, and it's a transcendent notion of meditation. So it's really about cutting through I and other, shunyata, and beginning to develop compassion, vipassana. That's all.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Dan. And then Christy.
Yeah, thanks. The one of the lines in the beginning of the chapter about how at this level it's not about being it's not about taming the mind, it's about getting used to being tamed. You know, it really hit home with me, and you know, rang true through the entire chapter. And I feel like he said it in many different ways, but it's a constant reminder to me that it's not about stopping your thoughts, changing your thoughts, changing your narrative. It's about seeing them for what they are, which is a collection of thoughts. It's about changing my relationship to my thoughts, not about stopping them. And when you when I change my relationship to them, I don't get carried away by them. You know, it's not about controlling my thoughts. It's about not letting my thoughts control me. And I feel like he said it in different ways. It just escaped my mind right now. But I think he said it very, right in the beginning, and it just, it just, it set the tone for the entire chapter for me. Yeah. And you guys, and I agree with what Judy said and what Christy put in chat. It really, when you guys talk about it, thank you, everybody, and when everyone talks about it too, it really just opens up, becomes alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Thank you. It does. We're all sort of moving into this space of reality together. Christy.
Great. I'm going to try to turn my video off. I'm still trying to work out my connection, and so I hope it holds. Maybe this will help. But yeah, oh man, thank you so much, Barry and John and everybody. There was like so many moments when it felt like it just went, like Judy said, just like penetrated at a different level. Just so many pieces of this chapter. But something that connected with just what you were saying, Dan Epstein, about just the weight we put on our thoughts, and how when we change that relationship, how we can kind of like get loose from our thoughts a little bit and not have them just be so. There was a time when I just was like, thoughts were paramount for me. It was just like I lived and died for thoughts and more thoughts, and there was not even one iota of space between them. And I feel that loosening. And one thing that hit me really strong tonight, John, when you were talking about the Iotanas, and I didn't understand, but I get that, just like what those are. And I think it's so interesting that mind is always included in the Buddhist tradition. It's the sixth sense. And it's helped me so much, because if I can just treat a thought like a sound or a smell or a taste, to me those seem so light, like a taste, a smell. They're fleeting, and a thought is that same way. I just think it's so brilliant that that's part of the Ayatana, the 12, or the six senses. And when we, in meditation, we practice that all the time. You say that the six senses, and include that, the mental events in that. And so that's just really hitting home for me and helping so much to loosen that. So yeah, there was just so much, but anyways, that was just kind of a realization I had tonight among many. So thanks so much, everybody. I feel so grateful, and just, this is just a joy and a privilege to be able to hear these teachings and be a part of this. I can't even tell you. Thank you so much.
I would just add to that briefly. I really can't say it any better than the last three responses to it, that it's so reassuring to hear this, and for it to be shared. It's so compassionate and loving of you to give it. The whole intuitive, what you were talking about, having an intuitive mind. I had a flash of part of my samsara I've been dealing with this week, with someone I was feeling uncomfortable. I felt the person was being disrespectful of me and treating me unfairly, and I was getting too wrapped up in that, and it just kind of boom hit me in this, how frightened she is of being out of control, and the fear that she has. And I realized I knew about this because of my fear as well. And all that just, it was just sort of untangled the knot, just like that. And I just relaxed, and I felt back in the present as it is. It was just another story. So thank you. That just sort of came and went while I was listening to you, and there were no gaps when I was listening. Both Barry and John, everything, single sentence you said, I was present for it. My mind didn't wander at all. It was so riveting. So thank you.
That's really, it's wonderful how there can be these spontaneous moments where in the middle of conflict, you can come into the present and become aware of, start to really see the other person and transform the situation. That's wonderful.
And I felt such compassion for her. So
That's terrific. Thank you, Vicki.
thank you.
Danielle, you had something.
I just wanted to say that I'm feeling the same way as Vicki and all the others, and I want to say thank you also for doing these teachings. I kind of had a same experience today of just out of control thoughts, and I haven't been here for a while, so it was like a reset tonight. So I'm just I'm appreciative. Thank you of this class as well, and all of you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Robert.
Good evening. I had a shift tonight with the term equanimity. I always had the context for it was with something on the outside, and hearing losing the notion of taking sides and just seeing thoughts and I'm back, that really internalized for me. And for me, it really fell together with synchronization of the body, mind, and spirit in a sense of unity, being one here. And that the idea of mind is switching the allegiance. It can't happen, for me, it can't happen without that. There's got to be a contextual shift that's not a philosophical construct, but an actual relationship. Thank you.
Well, if there are no other comments, are there? We can express our gratitude with the dedication of merit. It's really for all of us, every one of us. It's just, I feel like it's so, I feel grateful that it's so life affirming for each one of us. Well, who is leading the chants tonight? Is it Chinyi?
Yes.
Okay, here comes the chant.
We'll close by dedicating the merit for the benefit of all sentient beings. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience, may defeat enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
Thanks, everybody. Common
Thank
creation.
you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you,
Thanks,
Barry.
Barry.
John. Thank you,
Thank you,
Barry.
John.
Thank
Bye,
you, John
everyone.
and Barry. Thank you, everyone.
Creation tomorrow night.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Great to
Good night,
see you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
That was pretty amazing.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Amazing teachings, aren't they?
Oof.
So lucky.
Timeless teachings.
Timeless and God. Yeah. Very fortunate.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Good night, Rick. Good night, Trip. And Deborah.